Good afternoon, good morning. Hey, this is admin from plexguide.com. I'm just doing a quick video on how to use VMware Fusion. If you're trying to figure out the PC version, I will have a video for it, but the same principles apply. You kind of see the same stuff in the menu. Um, as I mentioned in all the other videos, if you can subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Because basically when you do that, it does help promote us and it helps the video gain, being favored, when people are doing searches. Some stuff I didn't know. But and then also, like I said, join our community here. It's good that when we see members come by and asking questions. And again, this is all for you. But so we're going to go ahead and kick off with VMware Fusion, which again is on the Mac side. But again, it's pretty much the same menu options if using the Windows. The only major advantage to using it on the Mac side is that you can actually emulate another Mac. But probably something you really don't need to do for this project. It's a little bit beyond the scope. And just to let you know, with VMware, basically what it lets you do is to create another operating system that can run independently, not utilize your computer. So for example, when I used to download all my files and do everything I needed to do, I thought it was a great idea to have it occur in another operating system. So what we're going to do is we're just going to show you what VMware Fusion looks like on their actual side of the house. You see I got my buddy hit me up. Okay, so anyways, it can be semi-pricey depending on what you get, depending how you get it. So this is VMware Fusion. You can just pretty much go here and you can download and purchase it, and there is a free trial. So basically, if you feel like you want to run another copy of Ubuntu or anything else you want to, you can. It's also great for It's also great for PlexGuide testing. The only thing is that you can't really test the independent IP address. So right here, you can download VMware Fusion here. And again, you're going to see me load up the program, so you'll be able to get a good idea of what it is. So, alrighty, so now that you know it's made by VMware, and it's been around quite a while. You do have Parallels, which is the competition to VMware Fusion. So let's go ahead and bring up VMware Fusion here. I used to use Parallels a lot, but as I started to do a lot of VMware stuff, it became more important to use it. It made it easier to connect to ESXi and all that other stuff. Okay, so here you can see that we have different names for virtual machines. Right now I only have one, so skip this version. Okay, so the first thing you need to have before you even kick this off is you need some type of operating system, because it will let you go through all the steps, and then at the end it's going to ask for an operating system. So it's usually a good idea to have it ahead of time. So what I've already done is I've already downloaded it to my desktop right here. So there's the ISO, and you can basically obtain this from, Ubuntu's main website. So if you type Ubuntu and you head over to their website, usually the files are about 1.5 gigs big. So it depends on how fast around the world you are that you can download your operating system if it matters, and you can even torrent it, which is free and legal to do. So I don't know how much faster to help you. So right now you can see that the latest version is this right here, and it basically gives you some standard specs. And this is kind of misleading. So for example, this Mac processor is a 1.1 gig, but it runs fine. It's the MacBook 12, but 2 gigs of system memory. So this is basically if you're to install on a machine. Obviously you can see Ubuntu 17.10 right here. So I really haven't messed with that. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new PC. And this is a good way to, like I said earlier, is to install and test PlexGuide. And then it's also a good idea to also create virtual machines to see if if your main server is not going crazy, or to test against. Okay, so right here you can see that I do Ubuntu 64. And then it's going to ask me how big I want the disk. Now this is where I would like to kind of give you a little bit of warning. Even being very experienced with VMware, I always tend to have problems with this capacity. So even though you create a 20 gig disk, it's not going to take all the 20 gig space right away. But this is what you're going to run into. Let's say you have, just to make this easy, a 25 gig hard drive, and you decide to make this 20 gigs big. You will be fine for a short time. But what happens is when ESXi is running, it creates extra like garbage that makes it run, and it can be big gigs big, including sleep functions. So the next thing you know, your disk actually requires 30 gigs to run 20 gigs. So a generic rule I can tell you is don't make your operating system bigger than like 40% of your disk, and that's not including if you take snapshots. And snapshots is like basically having the ability to take a real-time picture of what you're running and to go back in time. And again, this is good for testing when you're doing that. So right now it says, hey, here's this. So we're going to customize some settings here. So first of all, it's going to ask where do I want to store this. So I'm going to store this to my desktop just to make it easy. And we're going to call it, just FlexGuide Demo. Make it easy. And you should see it over there. And then before you kick it off, make sure that you set what you need. So typically when it comes to the processors, it's not recommended to run more than 50% of what you have available. Sometimes you can run 75%, but it just really depends what type of server you have, the disk, the RAM, and all that you have. So for purposes here, 2 processors, and it's never good to run more than half your memory. You can assign like 6 gigs if you need to. You can almost assign all of it. But this is not a good idea because you have to remember that this virtual machine is running against your real machine. So somebody over allocated too much RAM and maxed out all the processors on the virtual machine thinking that's going faster. But the best way that I could explain this was that imagine if a person had to hold you in the air, right? So that person is the computer, right? The computer that you're running on. And you being in the air is you being the virtual machine. So this is you, the virtual machine. So here's the problem. You and the person share the same amount of body mass equally. So, if a person is about, 200 pounds, ideally they can maybe lift a person 200 pounds, whatever. I know it's a dumb comparison, but just a good way a good way to compare this. So imagine if you weighed 300 pounds and then the person that was holding you was 100 pounds. Well, this is the problem that you're going to run into the virtual machine. What you did is, like, for example, like, hey, I weigh 300 pounds, and you see how it says this may run slow. And what happens is now your computer here only weighs 100 pounds and you weigh 300 pounds. So when you start it, guess what? Your machine's going to start slow. So it's kind of like the dog eat dog concept. It's your computer obviously needs resources to run itself, and if you're deciding to run a VM that eats more than what your computer actually requires for itself, it's kind of like that dog eat dog eat situation. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to over allocate your resources for your VM. So imagine if I did this. You look, I use all the memory and I use all the processors, right? That's like a person who weighs like 25 pounds trying to hold up a 375 pound person. It'll run, but it's going to run like total crap. So you need to make sure you're properly optimizing your resources, including if you're running additional VMs. So if you run 5 VMs and you give them all 3 processors, I think you get the idea. So I'm just trying to give you a little bit of advice that I've kind of had to painfully learn. Usually also you normally have to set up is usually your CD drive, and you're like, well, I don't have a CD drive in this computer. Well, yeah, that's true, but you have kind of like a virtual CD drive. So what you need to do is you need to connect your ISO, because if you don't do this, then, well, it's gonna boot up looking for the disk, and it's like, hey, where is it at? So we said that it was on the desktop here, so there is Ubuntu right there. So, and again, this is virtual, so don't forget the disk. And then usually there's one more thing I usually do, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So we've got processors, RAM. You can share a certain amount of graphics memory. Network. That's what it is. So you can leave it by default as it is, but what I've learned to do is I've always learned to bridge my computer. So if you know a little bit about networking, imagine your virtual machine running on your network, right? It would ideally be a great idea if your machine could receive its own IP address, like any other device that is on your network. Because imagine if you're on your Windows PC on, I don't know, you're downstairs. Well, if you assigned it its own IP address, your Windows PC downstairs can ping this virtual machine easily. It can deal with the other stuff, but it's like direct. So also, let's say you have a big, powerful computer, right, that's running Linux and VM. You don't want to constantly go back to your main machine, sitting on your, sitting in your living room or upstairs or wherever you have it, always logging onto it. So if you give it its own IP address, you can literally bring up terminal and just load up to VM, the virtual machine. So and I'll do a demo of this at the very end. So right now I have a Windows PC that's sitting here. This is my Mac, but I got a Windows PC that runs VMware, and I will type in the IP address and be able to log into it. So so bridge network. So I will say so it's an additional computer. Yeah, okay. Though, like I said, the one with VMware Fusion always confuses me a little bit because when you use the Windows version, it does say bridged like very easily, but there's the Wi-Fi. You don't want to pick that. It might, I don't know, it might be. So, okay. But other than that, that's pretty much all you got to configure. You can do the camera, share it out to your other devices, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of the video, what you need to do. So we're going to go back and close this, and then we're going to go ahead and hit play. So again, it's just important to kind of set that up prior because obviously Ubuntu's installing. It doesn't need a crazy amount of resources, but if you forget to configure this, then it's just going to take forever to load and load and load. Now, the great thing about VMware is that if you use certain disks, like Ubuntu or anything else, it has a thing called Easy Install. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to save you a lot of the ass pain of configuring Ubuntu. I can't remember if VMware Fusion does it. I believe it does, but we'll find out. And the Windows side, if you ever see me do a video of that, you're like, oh man, it just kind of ran through it quick. Usually when you're installing it directly, you have to kind of install the drivers a little bit, and you have to select more options from the menu. And it can be a little bit overwhelming at first when you're using Ubuntu for the first time. So here it is loading up, starting up. So let's see, I will find out if it's doing the quick install. And with let's see. I think so. Maybe I don't think so. Nope. So this is where I have to kind of do more of the semi-manual processes. So which is not too bad. So you just kind of pick your generic options, and usually you'll be pretty good to go. Definitely if you're just running a test server. So erase Ubuntu, erase this, install Ubuntu. So there we go. You can follow these extra things if you need to. I do usually do this, use LVM, logical management, so deals with resizing. You can do this if you want, but you have to type in a password every single time, I believe, when you boot it up. So that is installing now. It's asked if I want to write changes to the disk because it's going to format it a very particular way. And I've dealt with, again, with a little bit with the disk. Now, here's the funny thing. I remember when I did this, I was like, how do I select? Let me see. There was something that was like off screen. The keyboard. So you're like, oh man, I can't do anything. Well, you can actually drag this window, but you think that they would shrink the window to allow you to do this. I actually did get stuck a long time ago in the past. Again, you're just so used to Ubuntu doing its own thing. So I'm just go ahead and type Plex Guide. We're gonna make the password Plex, and then we're gonna make the password Plex. And this is something you technically don't want to have that short. You do want to check and log in automatically. Again, it depends on you. So for being a test server locally at home, this is not a problem for me, but you can have the password to log in every single time traditionally. And then your computer's name. It will give you a default name, but let's see, Mac Plex Guide. So we're going to go ahead and continue there. And so now it's going to go ahead and do its thing. What I'll do for right now, so you're not having to watch all of this, I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video. All right, looks like we're back. It took a little bit, but a little bit of a slower machine. So I restarted the computer. I disconnected the CD drive. It tells you to do that. So now that you see that I'm in, the first thing I like to do is usually edit the network connections. So if you really, really want to practice Ubuntu, you really need to know how to use terminal. So you're like, well, I can use terminal here, but why? You might as well have terminal here, minimize this, and go from there. It kind of gives you the real practice. So you have to make sure you understand, what type of class your router is operating on. So mine is operating on a 192 block. So for here, I can do 1968 dash, just to make it easy, 55. And then the net mask will be 24, which is correct. Usually the default that gives you're good to go. Understand your gateway is usually the first number, so it'll be usually like .1.1. Now you can have an odd setup where this could be the last number. It should never be. It should always usually be the first number. So if you know how to check your router, or you're having issues with this connecting to your gateway error, then you're good to go. Another thing that will always get you is if you forget this DNS server's address. So if you forget this, your computer will not know how to reach out and surf the internet. So you'll I've probably done this to myself maybe like 3 times, well, many installations, but this is basically what you need set up. So right now it should have its own IP address, and that should be good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit save, and then I'm gonna go ahead and hit close. And so basically the way I can test this right now is I bring up terminal. So I should be able to type SSH 192, well, the user's PlexGuide. Okay, so PlexGuide at 192.168.1.55 should work. So, but I might have to actually do a reboot. I forgot all about that. Let's see, so terminal. So after you set that, you do need to reboot your system because it is holding on to its IP address. I'm sure there's a way probably like in terminal you can just sudo reboot. I guarantee you in terminal there's a fast way to do it, or a very specific command, but it doesn't take me a lot of time to reboot. Ubuntu's pretty fast about loading up. But yeah, that's another thing. So, and again, I'm just doing this video on the spot because this is how I'm catching errors, and I'm just trying to give you a realistic view of how I set it up, because usually when you set it up and you're just trying to do it out of the side of your hip, usually you can find a lot of mistakes or things that are going wrong. So, but it should be this once it's good to go. Okay, now it should be good. You know, oh, I'm such a newbie. Got to turn SSH on. It's been such a long time. See, this is what I'm talking about. But again, I'm catching this a lot faster than I typically am. So basically, by default, your SSH is off. So all you have to do is turn it on. It's just a security thing. So I believe I put this in PlexGuide somewhere. Let's see here. PlexGuide wiki. And trust me, you have to document everything you're doing for Ubuntu. See, access server via SSH. And then hopefully I put this in here. It looks like I didn't. So I will make sure to include those instructions. I think I had them in the prior wiki. So we're just going to go ahead and Google turn on SSH server Ubuntu. It's a really simple command. Then down the road, like I said, I'll have more of a streamlined video for you. But again, you can see how simple mistakes will drive you crazy. So when I first, God dang it, so I didn't install the VMware drivers. Again, this is not the fully automated version. Okay, so sudo app get install open SSH server. And if you, so we got to do an update, sudo app get update. So we got plex. So the reason, well, I did have a typo here, but half the reasons those won't work is because you have to do an update. So I could have just had an error. But I've learned that if you forget to do updates, it will cause you all kinds of problems in the first place. So something good to do in practice anyways. So again, when I first started Ubuntu, man, it was just one thing after another, you know, VMware issues, spacing issues, not knowing to turn on the SSH, simple things like that, forgetting the DNS and the network. So there's little things that you can do that can just drive you bonkers. Okay, so now, knock on wood, this should work. See, there it goes, it works. So in the future, sometimes if you get an error, now if you're using a Mac computer, you'll sometimes, like if you're using the same IP and it's reported it before and you have a new machine, it will give you an error. Basically, you can't log into it. So basically, you have to remove or edit the file. So Plex, and again, in real world, you'll never have your password that simple. So now you can see we're on our machine. And again, the great thing about this running in the background now is that I'm able to even use my Windows computer in my bedroom and just log on, and as long as this computer is on, I can access my terminal machine. So it's a good way to practice for the real thing. So just to make sure that everything works, let's go to Plex Guide and see if we can install just a quick copy. We're not going to do the full install because again, that's not the purpose of this video. So Plex Guide Wiki, or actually here, install. So one thing you have to take note is that you really want to go through all the wiki stuff before you do this, because I know I'm good to go. I should be okay. So there's two ways you can install Plex Guide. So you can go through here or you can go through here. It doesn't matter which way. So I'll put two methods there for you. So you just double copy, you know, the whole thing. Just as a warning, just make sure you do a sudo command, because it's a bunch of combined commands. So basically you have a few minutes now, because right now you already elevated your permission. So just do sudo cd. It doesn't do anything. So it says command not found. That's good. But the point is now you have elevated permissions for a few minutes. So right now you can see everything started to download. There's the update. It's going to do the upgrade, and then it's going to install the whole shebang in there for you. So it's great that I can just use terminal here instead of going through here. So and if I was on another computer, I could go ahead and do this. So again, this helps you practice avoiding getting away from the GUI interface. But the upside to the GUI is that you can check for simple errors, like something wrong with your directories or something sitting on your desktop. I really had to use this a lot when I first started because I didn't understand the permissions and the directory structures of Linux, because you're so used to using your desktop and your documents and the C drive. So I learned how to move everything out, and then learning how to overcome permissions. So right now you can see that kicking off really well. So now you can see that VMware is running here, and it is a great assistance to help you. So when you're using VMware while this is running, in the future, if you ever need to change your specs, you can. All you have to do is shut down your machine or stop it, and you can go ahead and change the number of processors that you have. You can also change, things running with your display or your devices or whatever it is that you need. So VMware does provide flexibility. While this is installing, something that might intrigue you is VMware ESXi. VMware ESXi. And this is a very helpful program because basically this is an operating system. I attended a course that had this that I did not fully know and understand at the time, but you can install this actual operating system on your computer, and basically you log into a certain IP address, and let me see, VMware ESXi demo interface, or even a picture if I see it, like log. So basically this is like a picture of the interface here. So basically you log into your IP address and you can deploy multiple virtual machines, kind of like what we're doing here in a sense. The only thing is, again, it does not load up with Windows. This is I can't remember, I think it's a host 0. I can't remember, it's been a while, but basically it runs directly as an operating system. It's not sitting on top of Windows, so basically that makes it a little bit more powerful. The only handicap that you'll run into is you can't run more than 8 processors or 8 threads. So if you have an i7 7 series and below, that is 4 cores, so 8 threads, so you'd be good. If you run the new i7, I believe that has 6 cores and 12 threads, I believe you'd be handicapped to 8 threads or 8 CPUs. So this starts becoming a handicap. Like, let's say you have a remote server that has 16 cores. This starts becoming a handicap because you can't use more than 8 processors. You can run 2 machines, you can run 3 machines, but they can't all run more than 8 processors. So if your goal is to run a powerful Plex server using ESXi, that's your handicap. I believe VMware Fusion. Let's check out VMware Fusion. VMware, whatever, it's going to figure it out. Fusion, VMware Fusion limitations or max processors. I believe it's 16, maybe. Let's see here, what do we got? Looks like my batteries here is getting low. I mean, we're almost done with this video anyways. And like I said, it's doing a full shebang upgrade. But again, I just wanted you to see this. Okay, you're not being very helpful here. Sometimes you get useless information. It looks like it's telling you what you need. But I believe it's 16. Usually you can Google this. Crap, I can't remember what version of VMware Fusion this is. I think it's 10, maybe. About VMware Fusion. 8, okay, 8. I'm thinking of VMware Desk for Windows. So if I go here, well, it usually will tell you your limitations. Create a new one. But again, I think it's 16. It's been a hot minute, but I think you get the idea. So most people normally not running 16 threads, but now you have these new Xeon processors with a lot of power. So overall, you'll be okay. But again, this is a great way to test out everything that you're doing. And man, oh man, this is taking quite a while. It's an upgrade, so you know this is something that you'll typically have to run through. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause this, and then I'm gonna wrap up the video, and we'll call it a day. Okay, looks like we're about to wrap that up. Just watching some crazy news stuff. You know how that's going, politics and all. So anyways, at the end they'll say just go ahead and type plex guide, and you might have to type sudo plex guide depending on your permissions, but you just go ahead and type that, and you see here it'll just run you through the pre-installer, and that's pretty much it. So right now this is really talking to this, which is awesome. So we're going to go ahead and exit out of this. So we're going to do a version 3 update video. This is not what we need right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do, one last thing I want to show you is how to take a snapshot and why snapshots are important. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and log in, and right here you can see the word, let's type the word chicken, right? So you can go ahead and do a snapshot. And what a snapshot does, it allows you to pretty much make an on-demand copy of what you're running. And the reason that's great is because if you don't know what you're doing, you're deleting directories, you're testing things out, you're botching things up. Basically, you can go back in time exactly to that same point. So for some reason, let's say it's critical that I just have this word chicken here, right? So right now you can see that it's finishing up the snapshot. Just be aware when you are on a regular disk, no matter how fast your computer is, the snapshot can take quite a while. So usually if you have VMs, it's really a good idea to use solid states or even M2s. Might be overkill, but these snapshots back up a lot faster. So also you have kind of like a snapshot manager. So here it's showing the current state right now, and it's showing the snapshot that I took at 5:26 p.m. So let's go ahead and commit some mischief. So I installed a whole bunch of things, and for some reason I destroyed the word chicken, right? Now we're stuck with the word cow. It's a dumb example, but it's critical that you get chicken back, basically whatever programs, everything that you had running. Well, good for us, we took a snapshot, because you can now, what you can do is you can save this point in time, right? But I don't care for it. So we're not going to say don't save. And again, it doesn't matter what type of disk you have, because depending what kind of disk you have, see how it just goes like this. But if you have a regular disk, regular hard drive disk, this can take like 1-2 minutes sometimes. And there's the word chicken again. We're like, man, you saved a day. So for some reason, let's say we're good and we now have chicken cow going. Well, what do we do with our snapshot? Well, let's go to take a snapshot, and it'll take it. Yeah, see I was talking about the whole running low on space thing. So, because I do have a useless VM right now taking 50 gigs of space on my computer. Storage. Just to make sure the computer isn't freezing to process. Okay, we got enough. Yeah, I got a Windows boot camp here taking up a bunch of space too. Okay, so if I go to snapshots, I go here, and you'll notice that it took a second one. right there. See? So you still got the 526 and the 528. So I can go back in time, here or here, and that's great, But let's see, that's still saving. But I don't have to demonstrate this, but let's say you go back in time here and you do this again, you make another snapshot. What's going to happen is it's going to branch off and go like this. So it's going to go, and then it's going to call it snapshot 3. So now you have two different situations you can work with. So it's kind of the last important thing I wanted to show you in VMware is the snapshot. So the reason that's important is because for testing Plex Guide or doing whatever you want to do, you're able to go back in time. So again, this is just a quick and down dirty video of kind of like issues that you come across, what VMware Fusion looks like, how it can help you, seeing me make little dumb mistakes. That was the purpose of this. It wasn't a scripted video. Usually, my belief is that's the best way you learn is through frustration. I always said that to somebody, you learn through frustration, not through perfection. So do me a favor again, please like, comment the video, subscribe, help our guy, help Plex Guide grow. And again, you can always visit our website here at theplexguide.com. And at any time you want to ask questions about anything and anything Linux related, you can always swing by. Let's see, that should be done. So here's our Plex Guide forums. And you can see we have a lot of awesome members jumping in here. And we have tutorials of everything else. So again, I do appreciate your time. I know this is a little bit long. If you do have other videos you want to see or you want me to make, yeah, feel free to throw it in the comments. I'll do my best to check it. Thank you for your time.